Welcome to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight for our Champions League qualifier I am joined by Kevin Graham, fresh from the Scream of Celica studio, and Brian Degnan. Welcome for the big European game. Obviously we've not got tickets. I've been seeing the pictures on social media of all the lucky 9,000 who have got tickets. Kev, first and foremost, the team. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts on the team, I like yourself, Paul. I'm a bit jealous. One of the local supporters buses here posted that they were running a bus tonight because they had enough to run a bus to the game. And
how many CSCs do you got in your locality?
We have possibly 12 in a 15-mile radius, which will be.
Wow.
But in my locality, we've got 4. We've got 4 that come through Bannockburn to pick up. So, when they says that they were going tonight, are going themselves. I hope they have a great night.
Yeah.
And hopefully this team will give them that night.
Yeah.
And just went for experience. He's went for, I would say, the tried and trusted, but can anybody be the tried and trusted after last season? He's went for guys who have been about the club for longer, and who possibly know the pressure in these games. Whether we see his style to the level that he wants is a completely different thing. I think we could get a mix and match tonight. We could get them try to do Angie's style, but last season their muscle memory is still unwinnable. So it'll be interesting to actually see how we play tonight.
It will be. Brian, you are normally on the show on a Wednesday, so tomorrow we can deconstruct this performance again, and we can talk about it once the dust is settled. But I've got to get this out there because I don't get many things right in the world of Celtic. But I called this team on Monday. I called the starting 11 on Monday. And you know why? I think it was because I was thinking along the lines of we need as much experience in there as possible, regardless of what you think of Near Beaton at centre-half, regardless of what you think of Ryan Christie. Find a way of getting him in and then throw in the unknown quantity of Lil Abada. We've seen him for what was it, 26 minutes, 29 minutes? But I think we've seen enough, Brian, to suggest that he could be a bright spark tonight.
I think so, and listen, I think it's just, I'm so excited, to be honest. The sun's out, Celtic are back playing. It's so good. I've got such good feelings going into the game that it's maybe clouded my judgment a wee bit. But I think I'm really comfortable with the lineup. My lineup was a bit more a Maverick lineup. I had young Dean Murray instead of Beaton, and I had Sean instead of Sorrell. But I can't really complain. I think. Look, I don't care who's playing the right as long as we get a result, to be honest. But I think you're right. I think he's meant to be experienced. But interestingly, the way Celtic have been playing so far under Postecoglou, a bit of flair, a bit of rotation. If you look at the front three, Eddie, Abada, Montgomery, I think it's quite an exciting front three. And I think it's going to that's a nightmare to mark. Because Eddie likes to pull deep, wide. Montgomery likes to cut in. Abada kind of unknown quality. Forrest starting.
Christie.
That's the
Christie and Abada.
Yeah. Christie and Abada, sorry, mixed up. So you look at that rotation between the front three, because Christie's did a similar role, he drops in and stuff like that. So if you look at that, and you've got Sorrell's energy, Callum McGregor galvanised being captain, Turnbull, always look for a show on for him. So yeah, the back line's a wee bit questionable, but hopefully we've got more than enough middle to front to see it through.
Well, I think so. And, when we're looking at that defence, again, Kevin, partly in jest, we spoke about the back four being what it is tonight. And we spoke about that months ago. We were looking ahead to the people who were leaving. Obviously, we lost quite a few defenders, if you think about it, John Joe Kenny, Shane Duffy, Laxalt. We knew, or we thought that Hendry would be leaving as well, which he did. We hadn't really replaced Frimpong, and we thought worst case scenario will be Ralston, Taylor, Welsh, and Beaton. But let's be positive about it. Let's be as positive as we possibly can. And the first comment coming in from YouTube is coming in from the Kev01. The team doesn't look too bad. Right back and keeper are the weak links, but Beaton very rarely lets us down. My biggest criticism, I think, Kev, of Beaton, and I take what you said earlier on, he's been at the club 8 years now. So he's got that old head. He's got plenty of European experience. You look at the honours that he's won in those 8 years. My biggest complaint's always been the tempo. So you know that Ange likes to play a high tempo. Things tend to slow down. But going back to the point you made, Kev, I don't think we're going to see Ange's master plan or game plan tonight. It's going to be all about, trying to get out there with the best result possible. So I don't think it's going to be a massive issue tonight that Beaton slows things down.
I don't think so. As you say, Ange's only had 3 weeks, 4 weeks with the players, and a lot of these guys have missed periods of training and the games as well. I mean, that back four, and again, you're trying to be positive, but it's very difficult to be positive with that back four. That back four is a legacy of Law and Neil Lennon. And that is
short-termism. Yeah.
That's horrendous. And people say, we prepare for Europe. We need to prepare for Europe. We've never prepared for Europe under any tenure when Peter Law was there. And this is how we're at this point once again, playing a back. Beaton's played numerous Champions League qualifiers. Ralston's played a number of games as well in Europe. This is a legacy of short-term thinking and short-termism. And we're asking Ange to actually be a miracle worker here to try and get us with that back four through what is a difficult tie. And it's not a difficult tie because this team are far, far better than us. It's a difficult tie because of where we ended last season and where we are in this massive rebuilding. This is... Last season we had the embarrassment, if you get embarrassed with football results, you had the embarrassment of Sparta Prague, you had the embarrassment of Ferencváros, you had the embarrassment of Copenhagen. This could be worse tonight, where we are in the stage of this journey. So we've just got to hope that we get out of here with a decent result. Then we're another week down the line next week and we've maybe still got a chance to get through.
You know what, Kev? I'm going to throw this one over to Brian, right? You think back to the day we brought on Dan Orowitz, the Japan Times journalist, and I think he was starting a world tour of Celtic podcast that day, and we were speaking to him about his knowledge of Ange Postecoglou, obviously coming from the Japanese A-League. No, the J-League. I'm getting mixed up. It's the J-League, right? My knowledge is tremendous of Japanese football. And what he said was, they score 4, we'll score 5. That's the mentality. And we all shrieked. Looking at that there, our quality is all in the offensive, isn't it?
Absolutely. I was chatting to a big pal of mine, Big Stego, earlier. Shout out for Stego. And we were talking about the teams we watched growing up, and it was all flair. The three amigos, Cadete, Picanio, Hoydonk. And a lot of that was the same. The defence wasn't great. It was about scoring more goals than the opponent. Postecoglou makes no secret of the fact that that's what his game is about. So I'm I'm more positive than Kev, just purely because if we were relying on that defence to win us the game or to see the game out, I'd be terrified. But I think we've got more than enough. I think we'll concede goals, but I think we've got more than enough on locker to score. And the way we've looked in pre-season, Ange's teams like to squeeze the opponents, overload the box. And if we can do that and flush their game, it's their defence that has to be the concern. They're the ones that have to focus on the defensive game. We might have that sort of, if you look at early doors, if Welsh and Beaton can clear up a couple of balls and get a bit of confidence dictating for the back, and the middle to front lads are all doing the hard work, I think it could be a good night. And listen, I think maybe I'm just excited about the whole experience, being watching the Celtic again. But I think that regardless of who we would have in a back four, I still think the game plan would be the same. I still think the game would be won based on our midfielders and our attackers. The only worry is do we concede more than we scored? But listen, at the end of the game, I'm going to get 1,000 Twitter people slamming me and telling me I'm an idiot for talking rubbish. But I just think we've got enough middle to front that can cause their defence more problems than the attack can cause our defence.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all, Brian. There's a couple of shout-outs that we've got on the social media. Big shout-out to Joe Diamond. And Joe was in Monkland's cancer wards. He prayed hard. The operation was successful. He's now cancer-free. He's a big fan of ACSOM, so hopefully you're tuning in tonight, Joe, and you enjoy the show. Also, a big shout-out to Tony Bonner. Go and check him out on Twitter. There is a link that you need to look at Tony Bonner. That's with an E10. Arlo Newbiggin is my nephew. Please have a read and donate whatever you can, and please retweet. So please do that. Use the power of social media for the positive. Kevin, you remember Partizan Belgrade 5-4. Are we going to be looking at a night like that tonight?
I hope not. I really hope not.
Because we don't have the away goals rule, mate. You know,
there's no away goals.
So we might get through to extra time in the second leg.
We might.
How does it work? Does it go to extra time or straight to penalties?
I think there's extra time. I'm sure. I'm sure there will be. Look, I want us to win. I really do want us to win, but I understand. I'm on the. I know where we are in this season. I know that when Ange is looking at that side, that's not the side that he wants to put out. That's not the side who are at a level that he wants to put out. He's probably putting that team out there more in hope than in expectations. And that's not me being, and it's not his fault we're in this situation. We're in this situation because of last season. And I'm finding it very, very hard to be over enthusiastic about a team that's full. It's got players who want to go away, who it took us 106 days to appoint a manager, and we're really expecting them to pull a rabbit out the hat with players that ultimately failed us last season. Now, I want to eat every single one of my words at the end of this. I'm
glad you said words. Yeah, I'm glad you said your words, Kev.
And and next week, and I want to be looking forward to playing either PSV or Galatasaray. But I'll accept whatever comes. And at the moment, being my usual negative self, I just do not want. This kind of reminds me of the chaos that Gordon Stratton turned up at Bratislava. No, remember with Chris Sutton, Bobo Baldy, all these guys who wanted out the club and the Celtic were actively trying to get rid of the club. There's a bit of I've got this kind of vibe from this tonight. This is a mismatch. This is a mismatch of a selection, and I want to be extremely positive, but I'll just be crossing everything and hoping we do get a positive result.
I think it's a good point. I'm going to ask you, Brian. I've been studying, like everybody else, Ange, when he's speaking to the press, very matter of fact, shoots from the hip. He's asked about Lee Griffiths. He doesn't get into the ways and why nots of Griffiths being there. He just said he's available, so he's in the squad. He's available for selection. He seems to have the same attitude when it comes to the so-called Wantaway stars, of which I think there's maybe two in the starting lineup tonight. Ryan Christie, Odsonne Edouard. They're available for selection, so I'm playing them. Is that a big concern for you?
Yes and no. I think Christie's more of a worry to me than Edouard. I'm still naive enough to think we might keep Edouard this season. I said that a few weeks ago. I think he's quite happy to see his contract, and I think Celtic will take that because I know we can't make much of a profit on him. So I'm less concerned about Edouard. I also think he's clever enough to use tonight to put himself in the short window for a move if he does want to go. With that in mind, that's also what concerns me about Christie, because I think Christie will then want to be scoring the Hollywood goals, and I think he might become the Ryan Christie show and not the Ange Postecoglou Celtic show. So he's more of a worry for me than Edouard if he wants to put himself in the shop window. But look, the reality is, Postecoglou's got it's such a difficult position, as Kev spoke about. And Kev, you want to be negative. Don't beat yourself up. Because he has to win this game. It's 4 weeks to prepare for it. He also has his sort of philosophy he has to keep in place. So does he totally, say, right, Beaton's not playing because he might not want to stay, Eddie's not playing, Christie's not playing, and run out with a team of kids and we get annihilated and he's up against it again? Or does he say, look, they're going to put in a shift for me, the responsibility is to win the game, over the piece if they want to go, they'll not be there, but for the moment, let's just patch things up and see what we can do. So I think it's a kind of middle ground scenario for him. But also, if I'm honest, if he thought for a second that their attitudes were bad and training or sulking about, I don't think they'd be anywhere near the team. I don't think he would tolerate that. So, well, I mean, and the other thing I want to say as well is Eddie and Christie haven't actually come out and said they want to go, to be honest. So maybe in the case they've changed their mind. They might have said to him, look, there's been rumours, but we want to stay. So we don't know what goes on behind the scenes either. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for tonight. And we'll see what the result is, and we'll see how it plays out the next week or so.
Yeah, Anthony, welcome to the show, Anthony Aiken. You are watching us on YouTube, Mon the Mighty Hoops. I love this positivity. Buzzing with my ACSOM top on. Let's do this. Well, there it is. There's the ACSOM top. That will be available on ACSOM.net very, very shortly. We're just getting it updated, or somebody who knows how to work tech is, Kev, because it's certainly not me who's updating it. Loads of great points coming through on the comment section. Joe Porter, Ayeti should start instead of Christie, Eddie on the left. Somebody mentioned this today, and I think that's a fairly good shout, Kevin Graham. What's your thoughts on that? Because I think Ayeti's possibly done enough to be a wee bit disappointing tonight, not to be starting. What do you think, Kev?
I think Ayeti will be extremely disappointed not to be in the starting 11. Again, we haven't scored any goals in the last 2 games when he has started, and there is a very slight opinion that we looked far better when Eddie came on at the weekend against Preston North End. Again, that's very slight. I don't think Eddie's done too much this pre-season as well. But once again, Eddie is your best striker at the club by miles. Absolutely miles.
Yeah.
Is there a way of fitting Eddie and Ayeti in a front three? As the commenter rightly says, you could put Eddie in the left. You could get Eddie to drag people out wide and come in, because he likes to drift out there anyway. But then you would have to go away with possibly the natural width of Abada then. So I feel sorry for Ayeti. I thought he would have started tonight, but mainly because I didn't think Eddie would have been here at this point of proceedings. But as Brian pointed out, Eddie can use this as a selling point for him. This is a big game on a big stage for him against the Danish champions. And if he turns up tonight, wherever he wants to move to, or the clubs that are humming and hawing, by maybe adding an extra couple of million to the bid, if there is going to be a bid there, might actually then decide to push the button on that. So you've got to hope Eddie was going to buy in to whatever Postecoglou. You've got to hope Eddie, Christie, Beaton, McGregor are going to buy in to what Ange is telling them. If they've bought in tonight, we could be on a good night. But if they haven't bought in, if they're still unsure of what's going on, if the players are still unsure of the message, then again, we could be in that state of flux, which could lead us to a poor result.
Yeah, just one thing I would say about that, Kev. They didn't win the league last season. It was the season before. I made that mistake myself last week.
All right.
But Midtjylland didn't win the Danish Super League, I think they call it, last season. So they were runners-up, a bit like us in Scotland. I'm going to look through some of these players that have made the starting 11. We can't forget also that Chris Ayer has left the building. So that's a developing story. I asked the question 2 weeks ago, it was on the podcast, Brian, are we waiting for the departure of Ayer and Edouard before we buy? What's your thoughts on that? Because a few days ago, it looked as though Carol Starfelt was a done deal almost. Seems to be a wee delay there. Are we waiting on actually getting the money from the Ayer deal before we splash some more out?
It's quite a strange situation. I had said a couple of weeks ago that I felt that that's maybe the strategy, just to totally assess budget. Because in own previous seasons, what they've done is they've basically waited to see if we qualified for the Champions League and then decided what was going to get spent, which is super high risk. So it could be the case. It could also be the case, and I think Postecoglou's comments might have been slightly misinterpreted when he was talking about transfers. I don't think his frustration was necessarily with the club. I think it was more about the fact that they might have tried to get players, but I mean, Starfelt's in Moscow, so you don't know what the quarantine is for there. Then he's going to have to go to London. He's apparently done his medical in Moscow instead of in Glasgow, trying to speed it through. So I think that the sort of frustration is more about the current climate of signing players, as well as Celtic's historical inability to sign players in time for the Champions League, which I've always found bizarre. Because, I mean, do you think Don Mackay and his kids wake up Christmas morning with no presents? No. Do you think any of the board members forget to get their kids presents at Christmas? No. Do you know why?
Where's your presents? Where's your presents?
I know, because it's the same day every year, and usually about October time they start shopping.
Yeah.
And the Champions League qualifiers at the same time every year. So why do you know they're a bit of shopping earlier, a bit more preparation? Now, of course, flip side of that is you could argue Dom's come in, they're starting from scratch. I think that the truth is somewhere in the middle. But yeah, I think that the budgetary concerns are probably secondary, actually. I think it's more restrictions, scouting, actually negotiating over Zoom, negotiating through third parties, medicals abroad. I mean, you saw I don't think anywhere has signed a lot of players, really, this transfer window. Like any club, I don't think it's been bombarded with signs, so I'm assuming it's similar for everyone. The problem is we maybe are in more dire need than most clubs at the moment.
I just don't think we've got the infrastructure, the planning, or the people in place to get it right from this. I really don't, and I think that's been a problem for numerous years, and it's a legacy problem that Don Mackay and Ange Postecoglou are going to have to put up with until it's sorted, and it might, and hopefully it's sorted by this point next year. But at the moment, you can't you're dealing with the same scouting, you're dealing with the same lawyers, you're dealing with the same guys who have got a template how to actually negotiate these deals. So I'm sure Don Mackay, who's already admitted that he doesn't really know much about like football transfer dealings, I'm sure Peter's involved. I'm sure Peter Law was involved in this, because he would need to be to try and get Dom into how these things work. I'm sure Michael Nicholson as well, who's owned the experience of doing these deals as with Peter Law, will be advising Don Mackay as well. So we're just seeing like legacy issues. That's what we're actually seeing. And again, we're gambling. We're gambling big time, but we've been gambling since 2005 with Champions League qualifications. And it's all down to poor management and poor infrastructure.
Now, Brown Warrior comes in on YouTube, and if you are watching on YouTube, remember to subscribe. We have been sourcing a number of prizes, and for anyone who subscribes, or for anyone who's already a subscriber on YouTube, you will be put in to a monthly draw. This month, it's a platinum disc. The real deal, a BPI platinum disc for 2.1 million sales of the Verve's Urban Hymns from 1997. Brown Warrior says if Eddie was as good as some seem to think he is, he'd already be gone in this window. There was some talk, Brian, about Leicester being interested. The deal wasn't done. They went and spent their money elsewhere. And I like Angie's way of thinking. You're a Celtic player, I'm going to play you. And whilst you're here, I'm going to play you. But that would also tend to suggest that following Ayer out the door, maybe in a not too distant future, would be Olivia Ncham, who's not in the European squad. Do you think it's fair to say that any of the players that have left, you know, for me anyway, and there's been quite a few, I've not been unhappy with any of the departures so far, even Ayer, when you consider the money that we've actually brought in for him?
No, I think 13.5 mil for a guy in the last year of his contracts is really good money, if I'm honest. And it's good. It's a good piece of business. You would have hoped there was a replacement in before he left, but I'm like you. I've not been particularly devastated at any of the. I've actually not been particularly devastated at any of the players leaving. Frimpong, I wasn't not a fan of Frimpong, but I think for the money we got for him, I thought that was a good sale. In Cham, clearly there seems to be some sort of problem with him, whether it's attitude or training or something, because he doesn't seem to be fancied anywhere, whether it's Postecoglou or Marseille. So I would suspect he would go. My worry is more that they end up keeping these players that don't want to be here. You know, maybe through no fault of their own, maybe you're trying to push them out, but maybe they're negotiating on personal terms, and maybe they're sticking their heels in and want a better deal than the other clubs are offering. We don't know. And I think that could be, we saw how detrimental it could be last year. So I'm more concerned about the players that are here that want to go than the players that have left. Because I'm not, and look, I like Dyer, but I'm not devastated. I didn't think he was the player if they cracked him up to be. I often said that he was he was 6'5" when he jumped, he was 4'5". And I think that people talk about his ability to bring the ball at the back. He brought it at the back and lost it 9 times out of 10. So I'm not that devastated, if I'm honest. And I'm always of the belief, regardless of who the player is, if you don't want to beat Celtic, on your way.
Well, one player who certainly does want to be at Celtic, and he's been a part of the first team squad. He made his debut 5 years ago, is Anthony Ralston. He's in at number 2 tonight. I say number 2, Kev, because I'm old-fashioned, and that's what I remember. Your right back was a number 2. Ralston starts tonight. He's a hard-working professional. He looks pretty fit, to be fair. He looks as though he's been working hard. He's been in and around the squad for 5 years. He's played now under 5 different managers. You would expect him to be replaced. Do you think he gets a hard time, Kevin Graham?
That's an unbelievable start that he's played under 5 different managers. That is quite unbelievable. That he's 22, early 20s, hasn't established himself in the side yet. He's had 2 loan spells at Dundee United and St Johnstone, and both clubs, fans that I know wouldn't take him back. So you're talking about a player tonight who's in the last chance saloon for a Celtic career. Mm-hmm. And as you say, he's been very enthusiastic over in the pre-season games. You've seen him charging about. He always looks like a guy that's lost a fiver. He always looks. He's always got that angry look on his face, as if he's he's dropped his wages doing a drain. And when you see him charging about, you know this is his last chance. Whether he's got the ability, who knows? At the moment, we'll probably say that he's done nothing to prove that he's got the ability to be Celtic's right back. But this is the last chance for saloon for Anthony Ralston, and this is a massive opportunity for him. And hopefully the guy does grab it with both hands.
Yeah, he's only 22. You sometimes forget that because he's been in and around the team for so long. Good point for Brian Watt. Lee O'Connor not even on the bench. How far off it is he that he's not even a consideration to challenge Ralston? Well, I found it interesting that he wasn't named in the squad because he's one of these guys, Brian, we spoke about this, he couldn't be classed as one of the B-list players because although he was born after the date in 1999, because he's been loaned out, you've got to be at the club for 2 years without interruption. So he's not even in the squad, which means the only 2 players that could play right back is Urhoghide and Anthony Ralston. So I was not surprised when Ralston started tonight. I just hope he gets a 6 tonight. He goes out, he gives that performance, nothing spectacular, and we get through it. I'm going to ask you, Brian, is there any real concerns, other than the obvious, is there any real concerns on that part for you? Because offensively, I'm looking at the team, I'm thinking Turnbull started brilliantly this season, McGregor, new lease of life, Abada, it's the step into the unknown for him and for us with him. Edouard's the best striker at the club. He's a game changer, which I don't think we've seen enough of from Ayeti. Ryan Christie, when he's good, he's very good. So I'm guessing it's at the back. Where's the biggest concerns for you? We've not even mentioned Barkas yet.
I'm actually not concerned about Barkas. I think he's done reasonably well in pre-season. I think he fits Big Angie's system. Christie's the one for me it's a concern. Because Christie's a player who, for me, thinks he's better than he is. And I think he's very good. But I think he thinks he's world class. And my concern is sometimes he's a kind of individual player as opposed to a team player. And judging so far by Angie's teams, it looks like everyone has to be signing off the same hymn sheet. So he's a slight concern. But as I said at the start, I think we've got far more middle to front than the Danes have. I think, they might be better at the back. But if we impose our game the way Angie wants to play, I think they'll need to defend. I think we will have to defend on occasion, but I think the focus will be on our attack and what we do. And if we get into that game with that mentality and we go in swinging and we take our chances, I think we're on to a result tonight. Which, by the way, if we do, not only is that a good result, it's incredible for Postecoglou's abilities as a coach to steer that team through, and he deserves all the credit in the world, because some of the criticism of him has been poor. So I hope as much for Celtic, as much for him, we get a great result tonight.
40 days in a job, and I've just been looking at the footage of some of these Celtic fans, Kev, 9,000 strong, in the basking in the sunshine. We've got Jim Orr at the game, we've got Natasha Meikle at the game, Paul Lamb, big shout out to Paul. I hope everybody enjoys it, and I hope at half-time we are talking, like Brian says, about the masterstroke of Ange Postecoglou. Let's join the action. And we'll see you at half-time. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. And thank you to Brian Degnan and to Kevin Graham for joining me once again on A Celtic State of Mind.